Hello and welcome to another episode of Portswigger Labs. So today we're going to be doing two labs actually, and that's mostly because the one I actually want to cover, you kind of need to do the first one as like almost like a prerequisite, and these are both under the SSRF category in the OWASP Top 10. So without further ado, let's get to the first one. Okay, so this lab has a stock check feature which fetches data from an internal system. And to solve it, you simply have to change the stock check URL to access the admin interface on this, which will give us like a little panel and will allow us to delete the user Carlos. Let's get to it. And I'm already opening this up in Burp Suite, just so, because, there's a good chance we're going to need it. And, since I did complete this before, I do know that we need it. So the idea here is that we go to any item. In this case, I just chose the first one and we check the stock. Let's just see what happens when we click the button. So it just generates this like a random unit, or a random number of units. I don't think this follows any pattern. But when we turn the proxy on and we intercept it, we see that it's a post request for /product stock. And this stock, there's a stock API thing right here, which pretty much just gives it a URL for the stock check given the product ID and the store ID. And this would return us these number of units. If, however, we gave it this URL just for localhost admin and forward it, we actually get this panel, which is the admin panel, and it shows that we can delete and delete the users. So if we turn off intercepting, and if we just try to delete Carlos from here, it seems like it didn't work. We have to actually be logged in as the admin for it to work. Even though we were able to access the panel, it won't actually let us do stuff right off the bat. So that's some good security, I guess. However, what we can actually do here is, first of all, let's go back to the panel. Let's go ahead and intercept and see what happens when we delete it. So now this is a GET request for this given URL. Doesn't take any, doesn't have like a stock API or anything in there. So it's just this. This is simply asking us to, delete the user with a given parameter in the URL. So what if instead we actually put all of this inside our post request? So let's drop these packets, turn intercept off, go back, turn it back on, and we check stock. What if we gave it, we gave it the full thing. We gave it the URL of the localhost admin, and then we also wanted to just delete right off the bat. So if we go ahead and send this to the repeater, and then we send it in, found. Cool. And if we forward it, let's turn intercept off now. It shows that we solved the lab. And we can even confirm this through just checking again. Post admin, forwarding that. And as you can see, Carlos is no longer there. So that takes care of the first lab. And the thing that we actually want to get from it is pretty much just what we want to give to the stock API, which was this command exactly, or this URL exactly. So the next lab will actually be using the exact same thing, although we're going to have to tweak it a little bit, as you're going to see. So let's go ahead and go back to all labs. And let's do the next one. So this is asking us to do the exact same thing as last time, with the only difference being that there's 2 weak anti-SSRF defenses that we'll need to bypass. Okay, sounds easy enough. Let's go ahead and start it. All right. Again, just click on any random item details. Let's turn intercept on. And let's just, again, try to do it just straight off the bat and see what happens. And we can even send this to the repeater and see what happens. So this is not the same thing we got last time. It's saying that it's actually blocked for security reasons, which, makes sense. And we know from the lab description that it's pretty weak. So let's think of some ways that we can actually, try to break into it. First of all, let's check if the entire thing, or let's try to see where it's actually blocked at. So if we only look at localhost, is that going to be blocked? Okay, it is. So this word localhost doesn't work. Does 127.0.0.1 work? Because that's the exact same thing as localhost, just in number IP address format. Still blocked. Okay. So we know that the actual IP number is blocked. However, let's see if the IP address is actually blocked in decimal, because we can just give it a decimal instead of localhost. Oh, I think I'm still intercepting. Okay. So this online tool just allows us to convert an IP address to a decimal number that corresponds to it. If we give it 127.0.0.1, it gives us this value. Okay. Let's go ahead and see what happens when we give it this. It doesn't block it. Okay, that's good so far. So we know that we can use this as the local host, and it'll work exactly how we think it should. Cool. Now let's continue on with our command. Admin delete username equals Carlos, and let's just tack it on to the end. Okay, and as the lab actually said, there are two blacklists. So I'd assume that the two blacklists were both localhost and admin, and let's actually confirm that they're doing this. And that's exactly what it is. The word admin is also blacklisted. Okay. What we can do for this is actually we can try to put it into a decoder. And as you can see, I already did it, but we're going to encode this as URL format, which is what this is. So this equals that just in URL formatting. And we're going to see if we can just put that in like that. Still blocked. Okay. Now, what if we were to actually doubly encode this admin into URL format twice? So this turns into this, and then this turns into this. So if you think about it, this %61 corresponds to A, right? This is DMIN. That makes sense. Now what this is doing, it's taking the actual symbol and it's doing what corresponds to the %, which is 25. And we can kind of prove that because we could see this 25 happening, every 1, 2, 3, every 3 times. And that makes sense because every 1, 2, 3 characters is a %. All right. So what if instead we use this? Let's place it into here and see what it gives us. There you go, it works. So now let's try to tack on just delete username equals Carlos now and see what happens. And there you go. As you can see, we solved the lab. We bypassed the blacklists because it was somewhat insecure, and we were able to delete Carlos again. Sorry, Carlos.